Dracula, pages 55 to 67. Jonathan's journal. As I sat, I heard an agonizing cry in the courtyard below. I rushed to the window and looked out. There was a woman with wild, disordered hair, holding her hands over her heart as though she were exhausted with running. She was leaning against the corner of the gate. When she saw my face at the window, she shouted in a voice full of hatred, "Monster, give me my child!" She threw herself on her knees, and raising up her hands, cried the same words in tones which broke my heart. She tore at her hair, shrieking and sobbing, and finally she ran forward, as though I could not see her. I could hear the beating of her hands against the door. Somewhere high overhead, probably in the tower, I heard the high metallic whisper of the Count. His call seemed to be answered from far and wide by the howling of wolves. Before many minutes had passed, a pack of them poured through the wide entrance and into the courtyard like a pent-up river after a dam had broken. There was no cry from the woman, and the howling of the wolves ended soon. Before long, they streamed away, licking their lips. I could not pity her, for I knew what had become of her child, and she was better off dead. What shall I do? What can I do? How can I escape from this dreadful place of night, gloom, and fear? June 25th. Until he has lived through such a night, no man knows how sweet and dear the morning can be. When the sun climbed high in the sky this morning and shone down on the great gateway opposite my window, I fear somehow melted away. I must take action of some sort while the courage is in me. Last night, I know the Count mailed one of my post-dated letters, the first of that series, which is to blot out the very traces of my existence. Let me not think of that. Action! It has always been at nighttime that these awful things have happened. I have never yet seen the Count in the daylight. Can it be that he sleeps when others awake, so that he may be awake while normal beings sleep? If I could only get into his room. But there is no possible way. The door is always locked. And yet there is a way, if I dare take it. Why can't I do what he himself does? I have seen him crawl from his window. Couldn't I imitate him and go in by his window? My chances of success is small, but my chances of surviving if I stay here are smaller still. At the worst, I will die. God help me in my task. Goodbye, Mina, if I fail. The same day, later. I have made the effort, and God helping me, I have safely returned to this room. While my courage was fresh, I went straight to the window, took off my boots, and climbed outside. The stones are big and roughly cut, and the mortar has been washed away between them. I knew pretty well the direction and distance of the Count's window, and I headed for it best I could. It seemed no time until I found myself standing on the windowsill. I was filled with fear. However, when I bent down and slid feet first in through the window, I looked around for the Count, but with surprise and gladness, I saw that the room was empty. It was barely finished with odd things which seemed to have been never used. The furniture was covered with dust. I looked for the key, but it was not in the lock, and I could not find it anywhere. The only thing I found was a great heap of gold in one corner. There were coins of all kinds, Roman and British and Austrian and Hungarian and Greek and Turkish, covered with a film of dust as though they had lain there for a long time. None of the money was less than 300 years old. My main purpose was to find the key to the room, or the key to the outer door, but I could not find either. At one corner of the room was a heavy door. It was open and led through a stone passage to a circular stairway which went steeply down. I descended carefully, for the stairs were dark. The only light was from a few holes in the heavy walls. At the bottom there was a dark, tunnel-like passage through which came a sickly odor. It was the odor of freshly dug earth. As I went through the passage, the smell grew heavier. At last, I pulled open a door that stood half closed. I found myself in an old ruined chapel, which had evidently been used as a graveyard. The ground had recently been dug up, and the dirt had been placed in great wooden boxes. These were the boxes that I had recently seen brought to the castle. Since there was nobody about, I searched every inch of the ground. I even went down into the burial vaults, although doing so made me fearful deep in my soul. In the first two vaults, I saw nothing except fragments of old coffins and piles of dust. In the third, however, I made a discovery. There, in one of the great boxes, there were 50 in all, on a pile of newly dug earth lay the Count. He was either dead or asleep, but I could not say which. His eyes were open and stony, but they were not glazed over, as dead eyes are. The cheeks had the warmth of life, the lips were as red as ever, but there was no sign of movement, no pulse, no breath, no beating of the heart. I bent over him, trying to find any sign of life, but there was none. I thought he might have the keys on him, but when I went to search, I saw those eyes. In them was such a look of hate that I couldn't bear to be in their presence. I fled from the place. Leaving the Count's room by the window, I crawled up the castle wall, back in my room. I threw myself upon the bed and tried to think. June 29th. Today is the day of my last letter. I am sure the Count has mailed it, for again I saw him leave the castle by the same window, and in my clothes. As he went down the wall, crawling like a lizard, I wished I had a gun so that I might destroy him, but I fear that no human weapon would have any effect on him. I did not wait to see him return, for I was afraid of seeing those terrifying women. I came back to the library and read there till I fell asleep. I was awakened by the Count. He looked at me as grimly as a man could look as he said, "Tomorrow, my friend, we must part. You return to your beautiful England, and I to some other work. I have already sent your letter home. Tomorrow I shall not be here, but everything shall be ready for your journey. In the morning, some workmen will be arriving here. When they have gone, my carriage shall come for you, and shall take you to the Borgo Pass, to meet the stagecoach, which will take you to Bistritz. But I hope that I shall see you again some day at Castle Dracula." I asked him directly, "Why may I not go tonight?" "Because, dear sir, my coachman and horses are away." "But I would walk with pleasure. I want to get away at once." He smiled such a soft, smooth, diabolical smile that I knew there was some trick. He said, "And your luggage?" "I do not care about it. I can send for it some other time." The Count continued to smile with sweet politeness. "Come with me, my dear young friend. You shall not wait another hour, although it makes me sad that you wish to leave. Come." With great dignity, he led me down the stairs and along the hall. Suddenly he stopped. "Ah, listen." I heard the howling of many wolves. It was as if the sound sprang up at the rising of his hand, just as the music of an orchestra leaps under the baton of the conductor. After I drew back the bolts, unlocked the heavy chains, I began to open the door. The howling of the wolves outside grew louder and angrier. In my mind, I could see their red jaws and snapping teeth. To struggle against the Count was useless. With wild beasts at his command, I could do nothing. But still the door continued slowly to open, and only the Count's body stood in the gap. Suddenly I realized that this might be the moment of my death. I was to be given to the wolves. I cried out, "Shut the door! I shall wait till morning." And I covered my face with my hands to hide my tears of disappointment. With one sweep of his powerful arm, the Count drew the door shut, and the great bolts clanged and echoed through the hall. In silence, we returned to the library, and after a minute or two, I went to my own room. When I saw Count Dracula, he kissed his hand to me. There was a red light of triumph in his eyes, and a smile on his face that Judas in hell might be proud of. When I was in my room and about to lie down, I heard whispering at my door. I went to it softly and listened, and I heard the voice of the Count. Back, back to your own place. Your time has not yet come. Wait, have patience. Tonight is mine. Tomorrow night is yours. There was a low, sweet ripple of laughter, and in a rage I threw open the door and saw the three terrible women licking their lips. As I appeared, they all joined in a horrible laugh and ran away. I came back to my room and threw myself on my knees. Is my death so near? Tomorrow, tomorrow, Lord, help me. June 30th. These may be the last words I ever write in this diary. I slept till just before the dawn, and when I woke, threw myself on my knees to pray. I am determined that if death comes, he will find me ready. At last I heard the welcome crow of the rooster, and I felt that I was safe. I opened the door and ran down the hall. The night before I had seen that that door was unlocked, and now escape was possible. With trembling hands, I unhooked the chains and threw back the massive bolts. But the door would not move. I pulled and pulled at the massive thing and shook it until it rattled. It had been locked after I left the Count. With wild despair, I decided to scale the wall again and enter the Count's room. He might kill me, but at least I would die trying. I rushed to the east window and scrambled down the wall and into the Count's room. It was empty as I suspected. I could not see a key anywhere, but the heap of gold remained. I went through the door in the corner and down the winding stair and along the dark passage to the old chapel. I knew now where to find the monster I was looking for. The great box was in the same place, pushed against the wall, but this time the lid was on it. It was not yet fastened down, but all nails were in their places, ready to be hammered in. I knew I must reach the body for the key. I raised the lid of the box and pushed it back against the wall. And then I saw something which filled my soul with horror. There lay the Count, but his appearance was greatly changed. He looked years younger than before. The white hair and mustache were now a dark iron gray. The cheeks were fuller, and the skin, usually so pale, had a fresh pinkness. The mouth was redder than ever, and drops of fresh blood trickled from the corners of the mouth and down over the chin and neck. Even the skin around the deep, burning eyes seemed swollen. It seemed as if the whole awful creature were simply stuffed with blood. He lay like a filthy leech, exhausted after its feast. I shuddered. The idea of touching him was repulsive beyond belief, but I had no choice. I reminded myself that this very night, those three horrible women might feast like this on my own body. I searched everywhere, but I couldn't find the key. Then I stopped and looked at the Count. There was a mocking smile on the swollen face, which almost drove me mad. This was the creature I was helping move to London. There, perhaps for centuries, he could satisfy his lust for blood while creating an ever-widening circle of demons like himself. The very thought enraged me. A terrible desire came upon me to rid the world of such a monster. There was no weapon at hand, but I seized a shovel which the workmen had been using to fill the cases. Lifting it high, I struck at the hateful face with its sharp edge, but as I did, so the head turned, and the eyes looked directly at me. The sight seemed to paralyze me. I nearly lost my grip on the shovel and succeeded only in making a deep gash above the forehead. The shovel fell from my hand across the box. As I pulled it away, the blade caught the edge of the lid, which fell across the box again, hiding the horrid thing from my sight. The last glimpse I had was of that bloated, blood-stained face, grinning like the devil himself. I tried to think of my next move, but my brain seemed on fire. In the distance, I heard a gypsy song sung by merry voices coming closer, and through their song, the rolling of heavy wheels and the cracking of whips. The workmen of whom the Count had spoken were coming. With a last look at the box which contained the vile body, I ran from the place and into the Count's room. I was determined to rush out at that moment the door was opened. I heard downstairs the grinding of the key in the great lock and the opening of the heavy front door. Then there came the sound of many feet tramping and dying away in some hallway. I turned to run down again towards the vault, where I might find an escape, but at that moment there seemed to come a violent puff of wind, and the door to the winding stair blew shut. When I ran to push it open, I found that it was locked. I was again a prisoner, and the net of doom was closing around me more tightly. As I write, I hear somewhere below me a sound of many feet and the crash of something being set down heavily. No doubt it is the boxes with their freight of earth. There is the sound of hammering. That must be the lid of the awful box containing the Count being nailed down. Now I can hear the heavy feet marching against the long hall. The door is shut. The chains rattle. There is a grinding of the key in the lock. Another door opens and shuts. I hear the creaking of lock and bolt. In the courtyard and down the rocky driveway, I hear the roll of heavy wheels, the crack of whips, and the chorus of the workmen's voices as they pass into the distance. I am alone in the castle with those horrible women. But no, Mina is a woman. I will not give them the same name. They are devils of hell itself. I will not remain alone with them. I will try to climb the castle wall farther than before. I shall take some of the gold with me in case I need it later. I may find a way to leave this dreadful place. And then I will head straight for home, away to the quickest and nearest train, away from this cursed spot, from this cursed land, where the devil and his children still walk. At least God's mercy is better than that of those monsters. The cliff on which this castle sits is steep and high. At its foot, a man may sleep as a man. Goodbye, Mina.